Well, it's hard to believe, but this week marks the 5th anniversary of the start of the war in Iraq.
That story leads off our WorldWatch report. Since 2003, nearly 4,000 American soldiers have been killed and some 60,000 wounded. Some estimate the war has cost more than $500 billion. Iraq's Christian community has paid a heavy price. They've become the targets of Muslim violence, and more than two-thirds have fled their homes. But there have been gains. Iraq now has a constitution and free democratic elections. In the past year, the violence in Iraq has dropped by some 60%.
Middle East expert Joel Rosenberg recently spent 12 days in Iraq. I asked him how the Christians are doing.
More Iraqis this year are celebrating the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ than ever before in human history. Iraqis are coming to Christ in record numbers. I just spent 9 days in the country, 5 provinces. We met with 19 leading evangelical Christian leaders, and it's amazing how powerfully God is moving there right now. And you said you also met with some former Sunni terrorists who have now become Christian pastors? We did. In fact, I was interviewing them for a new nonfiction book and documentary film that'll come out next year. But we interviewed these guys, and one of them talked about how he had trained at terrorist training camps, recruited jihadists, planted them within the government buildings and all over, preparing a jihad. But in fact, he ended up having a vision of Jesus Christ that totally transformed his life. Now he's preaching the gospel, planting churches, making disciples. And when I finished interviewing him, he said, "Joel, you were very lucky." I said, "Well, I think that's true, but why do you say that?" He said, "Because if I had met you in 1993, I would have killed you instantly." Wow. And then he said, "But now I'm your brother in Jesus." And he gave me a big hug. And I was like, woo, you know. So,
woo, that was a close call.
It's amazing how God is just changing people's lives.
That's an incredible story. Well, how are the Christians doing? We've heard about the tragic death of this Catholic archbishop over there. How are they persevering in light of this?
Well, I don't want to make light of the fact it's been very, very difficult. Very difficult. And this is this killing in Mosul, which is the ancient city of Nineveh, was tragic, and it underscores how difficult it is. See, Iraqis are not becoming followers of Jesus Christ because somebody's putting a gun to their head saying, "If you become a believer, you know, then we'll let you live." And Christians are trying to force Muslims to come to Christ. Just the opposite. Iraqis are coming to Christ even though radical Islamic jihadists are saying, "If you become a follower of Christ, we will kill you." Iraqis have seen what real radical Islam is like, and they're choosing Jesus instead.
Encouraging words from Iraq. Well, a story that dominated the U.S. this week featured a combination of politics, prejudice, and the pulpit. Well, it ultimately led to a major address on race by Democratic candidate President Barack Obama. His speech came after a media report exposed inflammatory remarks made by his former pastor. The Reverend Jeremiah Wright, seen here, said God should curse America because of slavery and discrimination against blacks in America. While Obama denounced the Reverend's extreme comments, he also spoke about the way that black Americans relate their experience to the Bible's stories of suffering and deliverance.
I imagine the stories of ordinary black people merging with the stories of David and Goliath, Moses and Pharaoh, the Christians in the lion's den, Ezekiel's field of dry bones. Those stories of survival and freedom and hope became our stories, my story.
Obama attended Wright's church for 20 years.